in chapter 1, we talked about the introduction of baseball. We talked about the history, and we talked about the basic setup of a baseball field, as well as how the MLB is divided. In chapter 2, we talked about the scheduling. So, talking about what spring training is, how the regular season works, as well as the All Star weekend. And then we also talked about the postseason. Now, this chapter, chapter 3, we are going to be talking about the people involved in baseball. Because you may be thinking, well, who's that person? And who's that person on the field? And what exactly is a front office? Don't you worry, because we will be talking about all of that in this chapter. Hello everyone, welcome back to Ball Talk 101. If you're new here, hello, my name is Chanel and I will be teaching you the basics of baseball. So today we will be starting chapter 3 of our book about baseball, which is all about the people. Now before we get started, please remember that new chapters come out every Thursday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you don't want to miss a single episode, then please be sure to hit the subscribe button down below and be sure to turn on notifications. And if you really like this episode, please be sure to give this episode a thumbs up so I can continue to make videos just like this. So please be sure to check out the description box down below. That'll give you my social media accounts, my TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, and Threads accounts, where it will give you daily bite-sized news and scores about what's happening in sports. My Snapchat is also in the description box, where you get to see what a day in the life looks like for me. Also, too, you get the link to my newsletter, where if you did not know, I have my own newsletter, Ball Talk Breakdown. And what this is this gives you a summary of what has happened in sports in the last week. This is supposed to be quick, easy, to the point, and my goal is so that way you can finish this newsletter in 10 minutes. So think of this as like your early morning read before you move on with the rest of your day, and you are still caught up on what has happened in sports. So please be sure to click on the link in my bio and be sure to subscribe to that newsletter. Also, too, this video is available on Spotify, so you can listen to this on the go. That is linked in the description box. And this video is also available on Patreon for free. So be sure to go to patreon.com/balltalk with Chanel. That link is also in the description box down below. And be sure to sign up for my Patreon and you can get this video 100% free. So with all that being said, take out your pen and paper and let's start chapter 3 of our book about baseball, which is all about the people. Now, this chapter is going to be split into 5 sections. In the first section, we will be talking about the front office, exactly what the front office is, what the positions are, and what exactly their role is. Then in section 2, we will be talking about the players. So understand each position on the field and what exactly their role is. Then in section 3, we will be talking about the coaching staff, because yes, there is more than one coach on a baseball team. So we will be talking about each individual coaching position and what exactly their role is. And then as always, section 4 will be a summary of what you have learned in this chapter. And then this chapter will conclude with a 5-question quiz that will test your knowledge on today's chapter. So with all of that, now let's start section 1, which is all about the front office. Now you may have heard people talk about, oh, the front office is terrible, or the front office just made a terrible decision, or I don't understand what the front office is doing. And you may be thinking, well, what exactly is a front office? So the front office, think of them as the people that's running the organization. So I want you to remember that when it comes to Major League Baseball and all of these Major League Baseball teams, they are all businesses at the end of the day. That is what these are. So with the exception of the coaches and the players, everyone else that is running the league, that is running the organization, they are the front office. Now, of course, just like any other business, you have a CFO, you have a COO, you have a president, you have a vice president, you have a director of marketing, you have associates, and so on and so forth. So for the purpose of this video, I am only going to be talking about 4 positions: the commissioner, the owner, the president, and the general manager. The reason why is because these are the people that you will be hearing about the most in the news and what people are talking about. So that is why I am just going to be talking about them in this episode. So let's start first with the commissioner. Now, the commissioner, unlike the other 3 positions, they are in charge of the entire league. So they are not in charge of just one individual team like the Dodgers or the Mets or the Yankees. They are in charge of all 30 teams in Major League Baseball. Their job is to oversee any disciplinary action. So if a team or a player or a coach gets in trouble, right, the commissioner is the one who oversees that. And they are in charge of making sure that this sport grows and that it is continuing to move forward in a positive direction. Now, the current commissioner for Major League Baseball is Robert Manfred Jr. And so you may be wondering, well, how exactly can someone go and be a commissioner? So the commissioner is actually voted in by the owners, which we will be talking about next. The commissioner needs a 3/4 majority vote in order to be voted in as the commissioner of the Major League Baseball. Now, when they are voted in, they sign a contract in which their term lasts for 5 to 7 years. Okay, of course, depending on the contract. Now, once their term is up, one of three things can happen. Either the commissioner can try to go again and the owners can go through the same process where they vote them in and then the commissioner can sign an extension. That's one. Number two is the commissioner can resign and the owners have to go through the same process with a new person of trying to go and vote them in. Or three, the owners can actually vote the commissioner out and vote for a new commissioner to come into the league. So you can think of the commissioner as basically listening to the owners and what the owners want. Because at the end of the day, the owners will be the reason as to why the commissioner can maintain their position as being the commissioner or why they will get booted out. And when it comes to them getting reelected and extending their terms, they can do that as many times as they want. So you can see a commissioner go and extend their term for maybe one more term, or you can see someone extend it for like 20 more terms, okay? It's just for as long as the owners continue to vote them in, they can continue on and be the commissioner of Major League Baseball. So that is the commissioner. Now let's move on to the owners. Now the owners, hence their name, they are the billionaires that own the individual teams. They are the ones that are writing the checks to not only the president, but also to the GM, to the players, to the coaches, everybody. They are the ones that are opening up their checkbook and they are writing out the checks to these people. They are also the ones that vote the commissioners in, which is something that we just talked about. And they're the ones that oversee the entire team and making sure that the team in general is growing. Now, with this, there are two types of owners. There are majority owners and minority owners. Now, majority owners are owners that are basically in control of the team. Okay, so there are two ways that you can be a majority owner. One is if you literally own more than 50% of the team. So just as an example, Steve Cohen owns 95% of the New York Mets. Because he owns 95% of the New York Mets and the other 5% goes to another owner, Steve Cohen is the majority owner of the New York Mets. So that is one way in which you could be a majority owner, which is just by literally owning more than 50% of the team. Another way in which you could be a majority owner is if you don't own most of the team, but you still have control of the team. So for example, you could be someone that owns maybe 20% or 30% of a team, but you have a lot of sway in what happens with the team when it comes to decision making, things like that. And that in and of itself makes you a majority owner. Even if you do not own more than 50% of the team, that decision making, that control that you have makes you a majority owner. So just as an example, right? Mark Walter is the majority owner of the Dodgers. Now, Mark Walter himself only owns 27% of the team. The entire practice that he runs, Guggenheim Partners, actually owns 100% of the Dodgers, but Guggenheim Partners actually comprises of other investors, such as Magic Johnson. But even though Mark himself does not own more than 50% of the team, he owns 27%, he still leads the group in decision making and things like that, and that's what makes him a majority owner of the Dodgers. So those are the two ways in which you can be a majority owner. Now, the second type of owner that you can be is you can be a minority owner. So a minority owner is where you are still an owner of the team, but you don't have a lot of decision making, you don't make a lot of rules, things like that. and you just have a little bit of voting power, but you're kind of just there for the money. So think of someone like Magic Johnson, right? Magic Johnson only owns 5% about of the Dodgers because he is part of that Guggenheim Partners that went and bought the Dodgers back in 2012. But because he does not have a lot of decision making with the team, right? He actually has no real decision making at all, right? That's what makes him a minority owner, right? He doesn't own more than 50% of the Dodgers, and he has no sort of control or decision making. So that's what makes him a minority owner. So those are the two types of owners that you can be for an individual team. So now let's actually move on to the president. Now, the president is someone, just like with any other company, that actually runs the entire organization. They are the ones that have to answer to the owners if something goes wrong. Now, the president is in charge of overseeing the marketing, to the COO, to the finance. They are basically in charge of ensuring that the entire organization runs smoothly, just like a typical business. And the last position that I am going to talk about is the general manager, which you will see as GM. If you see GM means general manager. Now, the general manager does answer to the president. And because the president, of course, answers to the owners, and that means that the general manager also answers to the owners, right? Just by a chain of command. The general manager is the one that overlooks the coaching and the players. They're the ones who oversee the salary cap, and they determine, okay, this coach needs to be fired, or this coach needs to be hired, or this player needs to get drafted, this player needs to be traded. All of those decisions are made by the general manager. They're the ones that oversee all of that. You can think of them as someone that oversees what is happening on the field, right? Who exactly is on the team? Who exactly is in the coaching staff, right? That is the role of the general manager. So now that you understand what the front office is, now let's move on to the next section and talk about the players. Okay, so remember from chapter 1 that there are two sections to a baseball field. You have the infield and you have the outfield. Now, on the baseball field, you will see different players that are there, and they're there for a reason, so let's talk about it. Now, fair warning, which is that you're going to hear some terms and concepts that you are not going to understand, and that is completely okay if you don't know what I'm talking about, because I will be talking about a lot of this in future chapters. I just want you to get an understanding of what the different positions are in baseball. So all of these positions are numbered. They're numbered 1 through 9. There are 9 total players that you will see on the field. And like I said, they're all numbers, so let's go through them in order. So the position that is numbered 1 is called the pitcher. Now the pitcher stands on the pitcher's mound, which if you remember from chapter 1, that is this thing right over here. Now the pitcher is the one that you will see throwing the ball to the batter. Now the position that is number 2 is the catcher. Now the catcher does have 3 roles here. That's really important to know. They're the ones that get the ball. So let's say, for example, the batter goes and they miss it or they foul it. Then the catcher is usually the one who goes and gets the ball, right, and throws it back to the pitcher. Or they're the ones that have to go retrieve the ball to go make a play to any base. Or they're the ones that are covering home base when there needs to be a play. Again, a lot of these things, I understand if you don't understand this, we will be talking about this in a future chapter. But basically what I want you to think of is that the catcher is basically in charge of home base and the surrounding area. That's what I want you to think of as of right now, just to understand what the position is. Now, the position that is number 3 is first base. Now, the first baseman you will usually see stands right over here. Now, they are in charge of any ball that either gets hit or gets thrown in that first base area. You can think of them as the person that is literally covering first base, okay? Then the position that is numbered 4 is second base. Now, the second baseman usually stands right over here, right in between the second base and the first base, if you remember from chapter 1. And the second baseman is in charge of getting any ball that basically comes to their area, and they're the ones that help cover second base. Now, the position that is number 5 is third base. Now, they're the ones that you will see stand right over here, and they are the ones that retrieve any ball that comes their way, and they have to go make a play. And they're the ones that cover third base when they need to. And then the position that is number 6 is shortstop. Now, the shortstop is the player that you will see stand right over here in between second base and third base. Now, your shortstop over here is the person that also helps cover second base when need be. or they help cover third base when need be, and they also go and they retrieve any ball that is getting hit their way, or they go and make a play when necessary. Now, the position that is number 7 is left field. Now, I want you to remember that anybody that is standing behind third base in this outfield section, that is your left fielder. That whole section over there is called a left field. So the left fielder is the one that gets the ball when the ball gets hit all the way over there and it goes way beyond the third baseman, way beyond the shortstop, and somebody else needs to go get it. That will be your left fielder. You can think of them as like your second line of defense. Okay, so if the ball gets right past the shortstop or the third baseman, then it's the left fielder that goes and they get it. Now you can see that the section of the outfield that's right over here behind second base, that is called center field. Now your center fielder is the one where if the ball gets beyond the second baseman or it gets beyond maybe the shortstop, if the shortstop ran over there, they're the ones that go and they get the ball. So your center fielder would be number 8, and then your number 9 position will be your right fielder. Now you will always know that someone is a right fielder because they are standing in the outfield right behind first base. Now your right fielder is someone who goes and they get the ball if it goes beyond either the second baseman or it goes right beyond the first baseman. Then it's usually the right fielder who goes and they get the ball. So I want you to take a look at this picture right over here. This is the standard setup that you will see of a baseball field. So as you can see, the pitcher is number 1 and he is right here. You can see the catcher is number 2 over here and he's the one that's squatting. Then you can see right over here is position number 3, which is the first baseman. Right, you see the second baseman right over here, that is position number 4. And then you can see the third baseman right over here, and that is position number 5. Then you can see the shortstop right over here, which is position number 6. And then you can see the left fielder right over here, which is position number 7. Then the center fielder, which is right over here, position number 8. And then last but not least, you can see the right fielder over here, which is position number 9. So this is all that I want you to know for right now, just to understand the basics of who the players are on the field. Now, there are other positions, right, when it comes to baseball, such as designated hitter. However, that is not going to be talked about until a future chapter where we start talking about batting and everything else. But right now, I just want you to know the 9 players that you will see on the field and what their role is. So now that you understand the players, now let's actually move on to the coaching, because like I said in the beginning of this video, there is more than one coach on a baseball team. So I want you to understand what the different coaching positions are and what everyone's role is. And for this section, I am going to be using the New York Mets as my example of what I mean by different coaching positions. So the first position that I want to talk about is the manager. The manager is the head coach of the entire team. They're the ones that oversees not only the entire coaching staff, but they also oversee all of the players. They're the ones that set the lineups. They're the ones that control what happens in the infield and the outfield. And they're the ones that basically ensure that the game is running smoothly. And they also answer to the general manager if something is going wrong onto the field. Or if the general manager has some questions, they usually go to the manager, who is, like I said beforehand, the head coach. So in the context of the New York Mets, their manager is Carlos Mendoza. Then right after the manager, you have the bench coach. Now, I want you to think of the bench coach as the manager's right-hand man. The bench coach is someone that is helping to look at data about who exactly they're going to be facing and how exactly their team matches up. They're the ones that make the strategic decisions during the games about what lineup should be made and what game plan there should be, things like that. And also, too, if the manager gets ejected out of the game, which ejections and rules and everything else we will be talking about in a future chapter, the bench coach is the one who steps up and he takes over. So in the case of the New York Mets, their bench coach is Kai Correa. And then you also have the pitching coach. Now, hence the name, the pitching coach is the one who helps out the pitchers. They help with the different pitching strategies. They help make sure that they develop different pitches. And they also make sure that they help with the game plans as to what exactly type of pitches that should be thrown during the games. Right? Now, the pitching coaches do have assistants called assistant pitching coaches, but all the assistant pitching coaches do is they just help out the pitching coach. They just help out and do all of the duties and the roles that the pitching coach needs to do, so that way the pitching coach is not overwhelmed. So in the case of the Mets, the pitching coach for the team is Justin Willard. And then you also have the hitting coach. Now, hence the name, the hitting coach is the one that helps out the batters. They help the batters recognize what pitch is coming and also helps them out with their technique. Now, everything with batting related, I will be talking about in a future chapter. Now, just like the pitching coach, the hitting coach also have assistants called assistant hitting coaches. And all the assistant hitting coaches do are all the duties that the hitting coach has to do, so that way the hitting coach is not overwhelmed. And in the context of the Mets, the hitting coach is Troy Snitker. And then you have base coaches. Now, with every single team, there are two types of base coaches that you will see. So the first type of base coach that you will see is the first base coach, and they're the ones that stand right over here next to first base. Now, what they do is they go to the runners right after they hit and they go onto first base. They're the ones that give them feedback as to what exactly they did right, what exactly they did wrong. And then what they do is they also tell the runners exactly when they should go, right? When they should go to second base and third base and everything else. So that's the first type of base coach that you will see. The second type of base coach that you will see is the third base coach. Now, the third base coach is the one that communicates to the batter what type of hit that they should do, whether it is a bunt or a full swing, anything else, which, again, we will be talking about batting in a future chapter. And they also look at the other runners and also help out with telling them when to go and when not to go. So, in the context of the New York Mets, their first base coach is Gilbert Gomez, and their third base coach is Tim Leiper. And then you have an infield coach. Now, the infield coach, just like what the name implies, the infield coach is someone who helps out the infield. They're the ones that tell the players to either move in or back up, and they're the ones that tell the players exactly what they should be doing, what they should be looking out for, things like that. So within the context of the New York Mets, Tim Leiper, which if you remember, he's actually the third base coach, he is also the team's infield coach. And then on top of the infield coach, you also have an outfield coach, which hence the name, they help out the outfield. They tell them whether to come in, they tell them whether to go out, right? They tell them what to do, exactly where exactly the ball's going to be hit, telling someone who's going to get ready, who needs to get ready, right? And basically communicates to the outfield of what they should be paying attention to. And in this context, Gilbert Gomez, which if you remember, he is the first base coach, he is also the team's outfield coach. And then you also have the bullpen coach. Now, he is someone that helps out players in the bullpen, which I know you don't know what the bullpen is, so let's actually quickly explain. The bullpen is this section right over here that is next to the field. So in the bullpen are usually you're going to see a lot of pitchers and catchers, and it's usually the pitchers that are trying to warm up and get ready to go into the game. Whether that is before the game or whether that is in the middle of the game, right, for the next inning. It is something where the pitchers are able to warm up and get ready. So you have a coach that is helping out the pitchers during this time, telling them to work on their pitches, helping them work on their technique, and they communicate the status of these pitchers to the manager and also to the bench coach. So in the context of the Mets, Jose Rosado is the team's bullpen coach. So those are 9 positions that I just named. These 9 positions are standard. These are the 9 types of coaching positions that you will see on every single team, point blank period. These are the 9 coaching positions that is standard. Now, within the modern context of baseball, you are starting to see more and more teams implement 2 other coaching positions. The first one being a catching coach, which hence the name helps out the catchers. It helps them recognize what type of pitchers are coming, helps them, when it comes to snacking the balls, and also helping them communicate to the pitchers what type of pitching frame that they should be looking for. So within the context of the Mets' catching coach is JP Arencibia. And then another type of coaching position that you will also see sometimes is what's called a quality control coach or a strategic coach. Now, these are coaches that really do some advanced scouting and they look at the different talent and who the team should actually be looking for. And so within the context of the Mets' quality control coach is Danny Barnes. So like I said beforehand, the catching coach and the quality control coach are 2 coaching positions that you will not see in every single team. Some teams have them, some teams don't have them. This is more of a modern approach to baseball, but the other 9 positions that I just mentioned, the other 9 coaching positions that I just mentioned, those are ones that you are going to see on every single team. But these 2 here, they're not going to be on every single team. So do not be surprised. Do not be confused if there are certain teams that you see that don't have a catching coach or a quality control coach or neither one of them. Do not be confused because this is more of a modern approach, a modern take on baseball, but this is not a requirement for every team. So, now with all that being said, let's actually summarize what you have learned in this chapter. So, first you learned about what a front office is. You learned about the position of the commissioner and what they do. You learned about the owners and the different types of owners. You learned about what the president does. You learned about what the general manager does. Then afterwards, you learned about the different players. You learned that there are 9 players that you will see on a baseball field. You learned about their numbered positions of 1 through 9, and you learned about what the role of every player is. And then you learned about the coaching staff. You learned that there are 9 coaching positions that you will see on every single team. You learned about the extra 2 that some teams have that other teams don't, and you learned about the role of every single position. So that is all for this chapter. So now you're able to move on to the 5-question quiz that will test your knowledge on today's chapter. And I will see you in chapter 4 where we talk about batting.